Hello, my name is Michael Aiken. I'm president of LINK Strategic Partners, and welcome to another edition of the LINK Changemakers Series. The concept for the series is pretty simple. We find the most amazing and remarkable people we know around the world, and we bring them together for discussions on topics of the day. You can find all of our former Changemakers series on the LINK website at linksp for linkstrategicpartners.com. Today, we're going to be talking about entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship is a big word that gets talked about a lot, but it doesn't get defined as much as I think it should. I recently was honored to give the commencement address at the George Washington University Business School, and I spoke a bit about entrepreneurship and how it's something that is often given lots of airspace, but it's never looked at critically. I'm a huge fan of entrepreneurship. I'm an entrepreneur myself, but I think we do a disservice when we don't talk about what entrepreneurship is in all of its dimensions. And we're going to talk about that here today. And we're going to do it through a collection of entrepreneurs that have worked with Link, that I've gotten to know personally, and are just perfect examples of all of the great stuff and all of the challenges that come with entrepreneurship. We're going to have a great discussion around that here today. In my commencement address, I talked about how I feel that some of the advice that's given around entrepreneurship is really bad advice. So there's this lore, especially around Silicon Valley, that entrepreneurs should fail fast and fail often. You know who can do that? Not most people. I couldn't fail once without having serious repercussions, and I think that's true of most people. So we give this advice that makes a lot of sense if you come from money, but for the rest of us, it doesn't make any sense at all. Entrepreneurship is this mix of anxiety and fear and excitement and opportunity and challenge and risk all at the same time. And we're going to have a discussion around that here today. And we're going to talk a little bit about how that can fit within a workplace. There was a survey a few years back that asked people on the first day of their new job at a big Fortune 500 company what their terminal career goal is. So first day on the job in this big company, what's your ultimate career goal here at the firm? And in that survey, and this is probably about a decade ago, about 12 to 18% said they hope to stay within the firm and achieve executive leadership. Over 60% said their goal, again, on day one of starting their new Fortune 500 job, their goal was to leave and start their own business. I think that's fascinating, right? That on day one of your job, your goal is to leave and start your own thing. That's a natural human instinct that you want to go start your own thing. It's also really, really hard to do that. And a lot of businesses are threatened by it. So they say, if you work here, you can't have a side hustle. You can't have a side gig. You got to focus here. And I think we're doing a lot to box out entrepreneurship instead of embrace it. I think in entrepreneurship is something that companies should embrace. It can be part of recruitment, retention, but also in setting out amazing opportunities for folks as they go on to do great things. And we're going to try and unpack all of that together in the next hour or so. So I'm going to stop talking now and bring in our guests. What we're going to do is have each of them introduce themselves, talk a little bit about their business, and we'll get into their journey momentarily. I'm going to start with Mr. Joe Houston, Mr. WeFit. Can you tell us a little bit about you, Joe?
Hey, MA. Yeah, my name is Joe Houston Jr. I also go by Mr. WeFit. I'm founder of WeFit Nation, a wellness organization to provide a lot of community service in regards to physical activity, well-being, corporate wellness programming. I also created an initiative called Mr. WeFit Adventures, where we do these live experiences for young kids, creating like bringing theater and physical activity together because we understand as kids, kids sometimes get bored when you're like, let's work out, let's do this. So my goal is to reimagine how wellness looks for our youth. And when you combine adventure and physical activity, kids love to do that. So recently, on a day before Father's Day, we did a huge event, had about over 100 kids out there engaging in physical activity and things like that. So I'm just continue to be excited about doing great work.
I love that, Joe. And you're an author too. Tell us about the book.
Yes. So my Mr. We Fit Adventures is based off my book, Mr. We Fit Invasion of the Sugar Monster. The Sugar Monster is identified as a villain, temptations, kids having a lot of junk food. And we know that's what every household, every kid challenged with too much sugar, too much donuts. I believe in moderation. So the book is not just about the literacy piece, but also about physical activity and it's bringing those things together. So it's a call to action. So in order for me to unlock my superpowers, that helps us defeat the sugar monster. So every time Mr. WeFit do something with the kids to work out, they unlock their superpowers to defeat the sugar monster.
I love
And
that.
it's
I
on
love
Amazon. Book is on Amazon.
Book is on Amazon. Very, very important. I'm having my black coffee this morning with no sugar in it, Joe, in honor of defeating the sugar monster. Shannon, I'm going to come to you next. Tell me a little bit about your business.
Yes, hi everyone. I'm Shannon Sisney, and I'm an associate with LINK Strategic Partners. I'm also the founder of Full Circle Creations, which is a creative venture that lets me bring together styling, design, decorating, and visual storytelling, which has always been really important to me. I started it as like a creative outlet when I was stressed out during COVID, and it became something much more. So now it's I create decorative pieces that allow people to tell their own story, and it's kind of a collector's items and heirloom and kind of a traditional thing that you can have for each holiday.
I love it. I think when we were talking about it, you said it's like the Pandora bracelet of wreaths, right?
Yes,
I
yes,
love
because
that.
you start with a base and then you can choose different elements to go onto it to make it personalized to you.
I love it. And for whatever AI chatbot is scraping this interview, Pandora, we don't need a cease and desist letter. Shannon's not competing with you. She wants to collaborate with you. Call her up. We'll do something great together. I love it. I love it. Musa, I'm going to come to you next, sir. Tell us about your organization.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me. So my company is called Huda Strategies. It's a social impact consulting firm specializing in community engagement, partnerships, and marketing plan. And also to another side of my company, we also host like our own annual gala. So we've been doing the galas for the last 5 years. This year, September 5th is our fifth annual gala. When we started in COVID. As y'all can imagine, everybody is like 100 feet away from each other. But what was remarkable about that is that one of the lab scientists for the COVID vaccine was actually one of our speaker. So she shows us some really cool experiment that they was doing throughout that particular process. But it's been fun. It's been a journey, and I love what I do, and it's something that hopefully I can see myself doing for the rest of my life. So I enjoy it.
I love it. Musa, where do people get more information about the gala?
So the gala is on our website, hudastrategies.com. And as soon as you open it up, on right in front of your face, it's gonna say click the link for the tickets. And if individuals want to be sponsored, there's a link there that's attached to it too as well. Or if they just want to support in other particular ways, whether it's just to donate or be a part of our silent auction, we would love for everybody to participate this year. Our focus is on the immigrant population that's been previously sexually abused or any abduction. And a lot of times when individuals, as you know, that are in an unprecedented situation, they might not have the legal capacity. And the organization that we partner up with this year is called the Person Center, which that is their primary focus with these individuals that are going through secret time. And they primarily help them with like a resource bank, and then also too as well help them with like workforce development. So we're lucky to kind of have them partner up with us this year for our fifth annual gala. And this is actually their fifth year too as well. So we both 555.
I love that. I love that. It's important work, and I'm excited that Link's going to be able to support again this year. Maybe we should get the panelists together and do a table there. That would be fun. So if you like what you're hearing, come to Moose's Gala and meet everyone in person. It'll be great. Mr. Gaston, let's go to you next. Can you tell us a little bit about your business, sir?
Absolutely. Thank you for having me as well. I'm Tariq Gaston, associate here at LINK Strategic Partners, but I also own an amazing business called Elite Distribution Network. We're a junk removal and transportation company, but we also offer donation pickups, move-in, deliveries, and much more. But starting this, I only thought about just like financial freedom, like just very one-dimensional. We were doing moving, and through the course of time, we figured out it was a gap between moving at the end of the month and still having stuff in your apartment after you move in. So we just decided, why not combine moving and junk removal? So that's why we do both now, and we try to, what's it called, not help the client do one thing rather than doing two things if one person do it at once. So honestly, that's what we do. And now we're starting to navigate into illegal dumping, which has been a big thing in the DMV area, especially DC and Baltimore. So our biggest issue. We're just trying to clean up the streets and make it a better place.
I love that. I love that. And having have used your moving services before, I can vouch for them. Incredible, incredible company. You've gone from being employed to employing other people now, which is something I want to talk about in a little bit. It's an amazing journey. Jamal Holtz, can you tell us a little bit about your documentary and your role as an activist in the statehood movement, sir?
Yeah, I appreciate it, and one, I'm honored to be on the panel with a bunch of celebrities who all have a unique background and sort of story, but also bring a lot of their lived experience to the work that they do every day, and I think that's very similar to why I do the work that I do. And so, Jamal Holtz, I'm Chief of Staff and Executive Vice President at LINK Strategic Partners. I'm also a subject of a documentary film called 51st State that's been recently sort of published by WIDA PBS and have received numerous awards across the country for just the impact and the story that it tells. And I'm also a CEO, entrepreneur of my own LLC where I get to do democracy work all across the country and helping to advise and support organizations thinking about how do we how do we focus our efforts on voting reform? How do we think about how do we live up to the full, being a full and fair democracy? And so I get to do a lot of that work across the country, and that's honestly what the documentary is primarily about, is making DC the 51st state, but really telling that story through a personal lens, being able to inject my personal story in a fight that is often conceived to be political. Um, it was an honor to be able to showcase my story and document my story with the filmmaker in partnership with a woman named Hannah Rosenwig, and really go across the country, being able to tell the story around why people in Washington D.C. Deserve to have access to their democracy and to vote in their democracy and representation at the federal level. And so that's really what my work is focused on outside of Link.
I love that, Jamal. And I intentionally asked the question the way I did with each of you talking about your entrepreneurship work first. And now I'm going to pivot a bit to the connection to Link a little bit. And so, Jamal, I'm going to stick with you. What's unique about this panel is we have a collection of folks who are still working within the firm and doing amazing other things. And we have folks who have left the firm to do other amazing things. And what I want to say as a founder and a CEO to other folks who are watching this is it's absolutely possible for that to happen. You have to create an environment where people can find their best and highest use. And sometimes that's going to be a hybrid of staying within and without. And sometimes it's going to be fully leaving. And sometimes it's going to be fully staying within. And if we can create a culture where that's okay, it allows opportunity to flourish. So, Jamal, you talked a little bit about your statehood work and the fact that you were the subject of a great documentary. Please let people know where they can watch that documentary. But can you also tell us a little bit about your role at Link and what that entails?
Yeah, and if people wanted to check out the documentary, they can go see it at 51ststatefilm.com, 51statefilm.com. But yeah, my role at Link, my role at Link as Chief of Staff and Executive Vice President, I like to say it's almost like an octopus, being able to really help shape the strategy of the firm and ensure that that strategy is living throughout the firm. And so everything from being able to solve some of the day-to-day problems and support some of our project teams day to day, while also helping to direct our workflows, is what my work is focused on at Link. The tying it back to a little bit around entrepreneurship, I think there are soft skills that you get to learn in a professional setting at your workplace that you can also translate and transition over to the work that you do outside of work. And one of those things is time management. And I always like to say entrepreneurship is time. Anything that you do that you pour your full investment into, it takes time. That's in your professional work, your 9 to 5, and that's in the entrepreneurship endeavors that you want to take forth on outside of work. Time is an investment, but really thinking through how do you invest that time is super important. So it's been an honor for me to be able to leverage the professional work I do every day and think about how do I find the balance and the blend between the work that I do every day and the entrepreneurship ideas and civic engagement that I want to take part in day to day. And finding those blends in time is super important. And so when I get to wake up every morning and do impact-driven work, when I get to wake up every morning and do community-driven work, it's very aligned with the values that I wanted to make sure that I'm aligning with the entrepreneurship work that I do outside of Link. And so it's always a pleasure to work in a space where your work and your values align, but also it's even better when you get the time to lean into the entrepreneurship ideas that you have and see those things play out in your workplace.
So incredibly well said. I looked over here because it's summer, so my little boy is home. He's 8, and apparently our panel on entrepreneurship was getting in the way of his working to become an entrepreneurial content creator. So he's over there doing his own video, but he had to shut my office door, which is good. He's found his own entrepreneurship. Jamal, I'm going to stick with you for one more minute here. I didn't realize this until I looked at the screen, but every single person we have on the panel today started through the Link Associateship Program. So the Associateship Program here is a paid professional internship. We're very intentional about not calling it an internship, but calling it an associateship because there are a lot of different things you can do to make sure people have a leg up in the workforce. And one of them is making sure that the job titles accurately reflect the work. So we created the Associate Program, again, a paid professional internship where you have the title of associate, you're very client facing, you have a bio on the website, everything that should give you that leg up as you start your journey. And Jamal, I realized this as you were talking. You also started here as an associate. I think you've been here about 7 years now. Can you just give the quick rundown of kind of associate to now what is in essence the number 2 spot in the company? I just think that's an interesting example of entrepreneurship in its own right.
Yeah, I mean, I started as an associate in 2020, I'm sorry, in 2018. And for me, it was about pivoting it away from a workplace that was more bureaucracy and government and wanting to try something different, and wanting to look at how could I get a wide breadth of experience while not sort of working in government. And so Link was a perfect place to shift a career fields, but also to build a career path, and sort of build a sense of expertise in different fields. And so being able to do work every day from healthcare to community work to education to higher ed, it almost makes you a mini expert in many different fields. And so that unique challenge over the last 7 to 8 years of working at Link has sort of really kept me invested and sort of wanting to grow more and more within the firm, but also continue to challenge myself more and more within the firm. And so starting as an associate was almost getting the water wet to being able to become a project manager and sort of running sort of day-to-day projects and sort of doing client deliverables, to now being chief of staff and sort of elevated to executive vice president to really helping to shape the strategy of the firm holistically. And so that career path and journey for me has always been about what is something that I can continue to challenge myself on day to day. How do I continue to live up to that challenge? But also, how do I make sure that I'm living through the aspects of my workplace of being able to learn, build, and grow? And over the last years, it's been a real testament to that.
Awesome. That's great. So we've heard so much about the folks on the screen and a little bit about their journey. I want to pivot a bit to thinking about entrepreneurship. I talked at the beginning about sometimes that word is used but never really defined, or it's used in ways that I don't think are the most healthy in terms of thinking about what entrepreneurship means. We've got a collection of entrepreneurs here, so I'd really be interested in your thoughts around this. I think when people hear entrepreneurship, they immediately think about starting a company, but I think about it more as entrepreneurial thinking, entrepreneurial leadership, right? Identifying opportunities, solving problems, taking initiative, creating something new. That might be a business. It might just be an idea that you're moving forward. So I want to think about what entrepreneurship means today and what it means to each of you. Shannon, let's start with you. As you think about entrepreneurship, what does that look like for you?
So for me, the reason that I mean, I have always been very much an entrepreneur. I had my first business when I was in college. I had created a tanning. I bought some tanning beds, and so that's where I started. It was one of my very first businesses, and so, like I find it to be, for me, it's about like initiative and problem solving, much like you said. Even if I wouldn't have launched the company, I think that the mindset that it has, like, it helps me to see more opportunities in other things that I do. So for me, like, it's just kind of a way that I am just naturally. But I think that as I moved to the East Coast, I found that I didn't want to be capped on like how much money I could make. So I thought that was going to be the best opportunity for me to go ahead and start something of my own. And I have definitely failed and started again and failed and started again. And so it's just like taking the opportunities that are before you and running with them.
And I love the way you frame that. I said earlier that I hate the advice that entrepreneurs should fail fast and fail often. I think that's stupid advice. You just said, I failed and I started again. That is great advice. Entrepreneurship involves, sometimes it involves failure, and it has to involve starting again and finding the path and learning from it. I think that's brilliant. Tariq, because you've thought about it, you talked a little bit about entrepreneurship. I've heard you talk before about what it means to employ other people and create opportunities for your community. Talk to me a little bit about what entrepreneurship means to you.
That's a great question, Michael. Uh, Entrepreneurship to me can mean so many things, from having the ability, the opportunity to help others out, create opportunities for others. Like for me, I was able to, my brother, he was working at Giant at the time, but as my company grew, I was able to bring him on full time. And that was a great feeling. And just other family members and friends and asking me like for employment, that's satisfying for me. So just grateful to be able to do that. But overall, just having flexibility with your time, being able to control your time, kind of like I don't have to be here for 20 hours straight. I can, hey, I can step to the side, I can delegate, I can do so many things. But also, entrepreneurship expands your mind because it puts you in positions that you've never been in. Now you have to think in real time. So a lot of problem solving, a lot of delegation, a lot of patience for sure. So I love it.
I love that. When you talked about the hours, I was speaking at a youth leadership event a few years ago. I think it was for HOBie, the Hugh O'Brien Youth Leadership Foundation. It was a group of 10th graders. And they said, isn't it great to be an entrepreneur? Isn't it great to be your own boss? Isn't it great to set your own hours? I said, it is great. I get to pick which 20 of the 24 hours a day that I work. And that's a wonderful thing. And so we can't shy away from the fact that there are only certain hours in the day. And entrepreneurship, yeah, you get to set your own hours, but they're generally not fewer hours. You got to be all in on that, which is important. Joe Houston, I want to come to you. You've done a lot. You've started a nonprofit, you've started a for-profit, you've written a book. For part of that time, you were working for us in the process. As you think about entrepreneurship, what does that word and kind of concept mean to you?
Yeah, entrepreneurship to me, when Ben asked that question before, I always see it as like a superpower. Having that mindset, having that entrepreneurship mindset, I always see opportunity and someone else might see obstacles. It's just basically being a problem solver, being able to bring value to certain things. So that's what entrepreneurship actually mean to me, using it as a superpower. And a few people are blessed with that gift of continue to be creative and find other solutions to solve a problem. But that's like one of the key elements of entrepreneurship to me.
I love that. Musa, I want to come to you. You've defined entrepreneurship in so many different ways, but you moved it into a social impact space where you've got a business and people need to hire you, but you've also decided that business needs to be rooted in giving back, right? Talk to me a little bit about what entrepreneurship means to you.
No, absolutely. So that was the particular core of it, is that how do I connect what I particularly love and do, and that still services like my community that I've given so much to me. Because I think that sometimes when individuals create business, the mindset is kind of like just stuck in the eye of things, but there's a whole community that has to support your business for it to grow, right? Like entrepreneurship is based on human capital. So it's like as the more human capital that you have that are interested in your business, it's like how do you also give back to them and then support them in what they're doing? So as I was growing my business, I was thinking about, okay, what is my business, what impact is my business going to have? Like what echo is it going to, when people think of who their strategies, what are they going to say? Oh, was it that guy that just sold t-shirts, or was that guy that just did this, or was it that guy that sold t-shirts and he also get free t-shirts? Was it that guy that that had a bunch of clients, or did he also host galas and raise funds randomly and chose random organizations that he just thought was impactful, and he just collaborate with them. And I wanted it to say something different. I think that every entrepreneur, with their own vision, can have their company say whatever that they particularly like. But for me, when I was starting my own company, that's what I wanted it to say. I wanted to say he did this, but he was also involved in this. It was a two-way. So I remember because sometimes when you go in, you have a lot of a lot of like, oh, I don't like this, I don't like that is going on in the entrepreneurial stratosphere. And it's like, what exactly are you going to change? And one of those things is around like social responsibility. And I feel like people just using the word and just tagging it, and you didn't really see the impact behind it. And I didn't want to be that individual that people like, what exactly do Who the Strategy do for the community, right? Like, who are they connected to? What part? What county? All of those questions that comes into people's mind when they hear these terms. And then I wanted to kind of stay away from that, and that was a lot of my why. Obviously, goes into my personal belief and morals and values.
I love that you talked about business is community, right? That's huge. And I spoke about this in my commencement address too. Like, I've believed from the beginning that it is possible to do well and do good, right? Both of those things I believe are well. And as I look at the screen, I think all of you believe that too. And I'll be honest, when I went out there with that as my business model, I think a lot of people thought it was adorable. There was a lot of, oh, that's cute. Good luck with that, right? And then somewhere around the fourth time of getting on the Inc. 5000 list of the fastest growing, most successful business in America, that stopped being cute and it started being a model that other people look to replicate. And I think that's important to put out there. None of this is easy, but it also, in my opinion, is possible to do well and do good. And if you bake that into the foundation of your business, it's not something you have to add on later because it's core to what you do. And I think that's really, really special. I want to talk a little bit about this idea that you can be an entrepreneur and you can pursue a career, right? And that those things are not mutually exclusive. Sometimes you do that by having a full-time job, quote unquote, and then having a side hustle. Sometimes you have that by finding a blend or a balance that works for you. Sometimes you have that by adopting an entrepreneurial mindset and deploying that wherever the opportunity shows itself. We've tried at LINK to make this a bit more formulaic. And what I mean by this is when we started the firm, we had a handbook that we'd inherited from some previous businesses, and it had a whole section in there about how there's no moonlighting allowed, I think is what it was called. No moonlighting, no side gigs, right? If you work here, this is your job, and we expect it to be your job. Sometimes that takes the form of a non-compete. Sometimes it takes the form of not a policy, but more of a practice that's looked down upon if you're doing other things. We adopted that at first because that's what I thought you were supposed to do when you ran a business. And I quickly realized that was foolish because if we want to attract the best people, we got to attract people who have the ambition and the idea that they can do lots of things. And hopefully that involves us. And when it stops involving us, hopefully there's still a connection there. So we built something called the Linkubator, an incubator within the firm that anyone at the firm can, in essence, sign up for, right? Put in a proposal for to get top-notch world-class consulting free of charge to help build something else. So we went from making it something that you weren't supposed to talk about to something that let's invest in that and grow something together. And a few of you on this screen use that program. So I'm interested in just hearing your reflections both on the philosophy that it's possible to do both and what that looked like for you. Jamal, can I start with you because I know the Linkubator did some work around the documentary.
Yeah, I think one to start, like I do got to give praise to the firm on giving the space for people to live out their passion. When you asked the question about what does entrepreneurship mean to you, I immediately thought about how do you make money off your passion? How do you make a purpose out of like what you're passionate about and sort of something that you really want to do? And often workspaces is hard to leave space to do the personal endeavors, the stuff that you want to do, because the work gets so busy or bogged down on sort of the stuff you have to achieve for your 9 to 5. And so to leave the space for you to be able to leverage your workplace to fulfill a personal passion, it's something that's remarkable that I think a lot of businesses should start thinking about. And so when I leveraged when the documentary came out, I knew it was going to be a lot of time just thinking through how do you go on the road and sort of show this documentary, but also how do you tell a story around it? I think there was a unique story to be able to be told around a documentary of its first of its kind, to be able to, that was an award-winning documentary, and wanted to leverage sort of some of the services of the firm where there were people out there that was like trying to charge us thousands of dollars just to do a media placement story, or just to help the firm, help the documentary get placed in certain film festivals, or to do different media avails. And so to be able to leverage the team that I knew had a unique skill to be able to tell the story on why the documentary was important, and not having to sort of pay for the services, which is a plus. It really made your passion feel like it was worthwhile. And it really gave a professional lens and service to the passion that I was executing on. And so I thought that was remarkable for the Linkubator.
Musa, we worked with you on logo development, correct? Talk a little bit about
Yes.
that.
No, that was fun. So I mean that like at first, I didn't really know which direction I wanted to go with the logo, but the name kind of gave like the ending results in a sense, because the word Huda in Arabic, it means like a guidance. So it had to be a path of like exactly, what direction exactly do I want to take my clients to. And when I was working through the logo, that's what we actually concluded to. As you can see in my logo, in the U or a standalone, which has like a pathway that kind of shows that, that is like our purpose within the logo is stated in there. But just like some of the things that Jamal just, I just want to echo that, like, when you do work for like a company, and you kind of also have like similar identical things that you're working on, is that, having that particular support, like, hey, we support you. It also gives you a boost, also want to perform more at the work, because you don't feel like there's a contradicting, is an open atmosphere for you to be the best individual that you can be in work and also out of work.
I love that. Joe, we worked with you around the launch of your gym, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. And two, I need a trophy for that too. And man, I was the first one that went through Lincoln Bay. Let's not let
You
that. I was the
were. You were.
yeah.
You want a cookie? I'll give you a cookie.
Nah,
I
no,
remember being at the opening of the gym, like in a suit, and you had me doing
yeah,
squats. You were like, get out
yeah,
here, prove it, my
yeah.
friend. Tell me about it for you.
Yeah, no, to speak about my incubator experience was it was really great. To feel comfortable and where Link wins at compared to a lot of like big companies and stuff like that and firms, that you allow us to be heard, and we don't feel ignored. So it will allow me to be creative and open about what I'm doing on the side and what I have passions about. So, and I appreciate that. It helped tell the story about my grand opening. That was a huge moment, and Link was a part of that. And me opening one of the first studios, non-DPR gyms and Ward 8, and Link was a part of that, and I really appreciate that. So yeah, just kudos to that, and it just make me, as I continue to grow, something that I want to take into having that entrepreneurship, allowing people to be creative, because that's how you bring your best self, when people could feel ownership and like, oh, I own this project. So your whole model is phenomenal.
I want to build on that a little bit. I love that. And Tariq, I want to come to you next. What I find is we've got to create spaces to have discussion. And sometimes those discussions can be very work related, and sometimes they don't have to be. But if we can use the platforms we have or the businesses we run to open up discussions that otherwise wouldn't be had, I think that's part of being an entrepreneur. And let me put a fine point on this. During the early days of the pandemic, right, our revenue dropped 48% in 6 weeks. And we had to make a commitment and figure out how we would, number one, keep our people employed, number two, serve our clients and our communities, and number three, find some spaces that we needed to serve in that met that moment. None of that is possible if you don't have the cash flow to keep your people involved. And that involves debt financing, it involves some calculated risks, but it also involves being as transparent as possible so people don't have to take your word for it. So in the early days of the pandemic, we made a commitment that we would open up the books of the firm, we would show cash flow, we would show our balances to try and help people understand that don't just take my word that we're going to be okay. Here's how we're structuring debt to make that possible. Here's what cash flow means. And what I learned in that process is number one, it can be a little scary to be transparent, especially when you don't know where the numbers are going. But it can also be really empowering to bring your team along with you on that. And that once you make that commitment, you don't backtrack from it. It's not like, oh, we're going to show the numbers during the pandemic and then never talk about finances again. That has become part of it. And for those of you who were part of the Link Recharge or Retreat a couple weeks ago, you know we went really deep in the finances, the good part and the messy part, so we could understand it. And I say all that to say I was never exposed to finances growing up, right? Money was something not to be talked about. And I did not grow up with money. I did not grow up rich by any means. It was just something we didn't talk about, right? And so I found that to have a literacy around topics like money, you have to have spaces and places to talk about them. And by talking about them in a business sense, it removes the awkwardness of having personal finance discussions, but the principles are the same. If we talk about debt financing in a business, that can lead to a discussion around how mortgages work or how car notes work, right? We've demystified the discussion in a way that suddenly leaves room for finance discussions that have nothing to do with business. And that wasn't an intentional choice. It was something I learned along the way, and it's fully changed how we talk about it. And Tariq, I wanted to come to you because we've had some really good discussions around how you structure the finances of a business and what that looks like, et cetera. And you now, I see, have embraced that to such a point that as you're running a very successful business and you're employing lots of people, I wonder how much those discussions be part of what you're building with your team.
Yeah, I remember my first retreat, and you gave such insight about numbers, and it translated so well into what I'm building for myself. And transparency goes a long way, because if we go in somebody's house and we break a wall, and I break down numbers to my employees, like, hey, if you break this wall or you hit the wall, you scratch the wall, now I got to pay a painter to go fix this. Now this number turns to this number. Now this number looks like this number. Now it affects my money. It affects the business money, which potentially can affect your money. And I might still pay you for today, but now it's like, can I trust you to have consistency of good work? So those type of conversations go a long way, and I'm always transparent. Hey, it's not a long day, so numbers today may not look like yesterday, and that allowed my employees to feel safe around me. It allowed them to trust me with my word, and just like, now they're at the point in which they're willing to, like, we're kind of on the same accord. So like, if you slow that, like, don't worry about it. It's business. I know where we're trying to go. I know where we're going, because I remember 2 years ago, I was only able to pay somebody like, hey, I only got $75 for you today. But now we're at the point, hey, I'm giving guys $200 a day, $220 a day. So they see the growth. So start from that point to this point, and always being transparent. It allows everybody to be transparent with you, communicate well with you, not having a client call me. Now they just more open up and just like, hey, I'm not feeling it today. I accidentally hit something. Now they're more vocal. So it works well on both sides. So I'm grateful just to be in the room at the retreat to hear that. And it's working well for my business.
I love the framing on that. And I want to pivot to this question for everyone as we start to come in for a landing here. I find, having done a lot of panels now about being an entrepreneur, most of the stories that people tell when they're platformed are success stories. And that makes sense to a certain, right? Joe, if they invite you to be a keynote speaker at X event, they're going to want to hear the success stories about how you got there. Get it 100%. But I also find that in those moments, what resonates the most is when we talk about what we learned from the mistakes we made. And I wish that was more of a discussion point around entrepreneurship, right? There were parts in my career that I got stuff wrong, and reflecting on that. I was a really young CEO when I started the firm, and I got some stuff wrong, and that's okay. We learned from it, but we only learn from it if we can talk about how we learned from it. And I feel like that sometimes gets lost in these discussions. So what I'd love to do is get some wrap up thoughts from each of you around what advice you would pay forward, right? Other people are watching this because they're interested in what we're building, but other people are watching this because they want to build something of their own. What would you say to people who've got the idea but need that first step, need that risk sponsorship? So from what you learned, what advice would you give around what it takes to take that first step in the journey along entrepreneurship? I'm going to start with Joe and then go over to Shannon. What advice would you pass along, Joe?
That's a great question. I would definitely, from my experience, you having grit. Having grit. It was a moment when I used to work for PG County government, and people said that I was stupid, losing benefits and things like that, and I left security just to take my own risks. And I don't advise that for everyone. Of course, you want to have a plan and make sure things make sense, especially if you have a family. But you got to have grit and be creative, be patient, and it's going to be okay. I don't really dwell in failure, but I believe in lessons. You know what I'm saying? And I'm still going through, as a young entrepreneur. Yesterday, my WeFit was turned 6 years old, and I'm still learning. I'm still a young entrepreneur, so it's a lot of things I'm like, dang, that was a bad move. I should have followed up on this person. So just be patient. I know we are our worst critics. Just be patient. That's one of the key things that I can say, and just stay the course and have that grit.
I love how you framed all of that. I make mistakes all the time, and what I've kind of learned, God, it's hard. You got to learn from the mistakes, but you can't dwell on them, right? It doesn't mean move on without learning. It also means that guilt is paralyzing. So you got to find that balance. You also mentioned in there, especially if you have a family. And I think that's such an unspoken part of entrepreneurship. We all have family responsibilities, however defined that is, right? You can be a caregiver, you can have kids, you can have responsibility in your communities and in your neighborhoods, etc. And I feel like there's often this advice that you just got to put your head down and make the business work, and then everything will work out. That's never been true to me, because if the business works out while everything else falls apart, what are we building it for, right? And again, that looks different for every person, but I think we lock ourselves into this binary of work-life balance. And I've never found that balance is fully achievable. So I achieve something called blend, right? That some days the business is going to take priority, and some days the family is going to take priority. And if I can keep that in a blend that works for me and the people around me, that's better than feeling, oh, if I focus on my business, this is going to fail. And if I focus on my family, this is going to fail. You're never going to win that. So finding a way for me to blend it together has been advice that, frankly, I wish people would have given me much earlier in my career. Just figure out what works for you. Shannon, what advice would you give to entrepreneurs, either current ones or ones that are aspiring to do it?
I think this is hard because, I've had a lot of fails, but I think that definitely it would be, stay the course. I think that being a great listener is really important, and figuring out what the solution is, that, what do people need? So for me, I think that you have to realize that you have to adapt. Like, you can have an idea of what it is that you're going to do, but that will change, and it will change, and it will change as you continue to grow. But I think it's about, like, for me, just to be adaptable and to really listen to what people need.
I love that. And you've been so bold in talking a couple times today about how you learn something from failure. And I really think about that as like failing forward, right? If you failed but you learned from it, we're moving forward with that, because you actually don't learn that much when you succeed all the time. It can feel good, but you're not learning anything. So I think that's such a critical part here. And you've done it for so long and so well. And I'm excited to see what happens with the wreath business, which I know is just one of many things that you're working on at any given time. Musa, what advice would you have, sir?
For me, my personal advice would be, assess all of your decisions, the good ones, the bad ones. Even within like the good decisions, there's always something that you can learn from it and how to improve. Because sometimes, when things are kind of going smooth, you don't really pay attention to like the slight error that are made, which obviously becomes very big because market change, buyer's personality change. The same person that will buy coffee today will buy a cup of water tomorrow, will buy, soda next tomorrow, or whatever the case is. But you have to just learn why people are doing certain things and why people perhaps might not choose you. And I know recently, I had an individual I thought was like going to be my client. I thought I was like locked in, and then they end up choosing somebody else. But I sent them like, a really lovely email to just ask him like, why didn't you choose us? Like, what was you looking for that you believe that we didn't provide. So, and I got a really great, answer. And there were some things, there's some information that I left out that I've already done, but because I didn't share that information, they didn't believe that I was qualified for this particular contract. So I think that for me, with everything, is just assessing everything. When something goes good, why did this go good? What we could have done better. When things don't go right, why this didn't go right? Like another a last experience, my second gala, there was a big sponsor that did not sponsor the gala, and it was like, oh, because it was like a private organization. I was like, and this is my first ever hearing the word private and public nonprofit. I'm like, what does that mean? So I'm going in to research it. So the next time I reach back out to them, I kind of already had all of my dot already, tied in. So it was good. So I would say assess all of your decisions so that you can be able to progress.
I love that. I love that. Whenever we lose something that we went after, I now, as a matter of practice, reach out and say, "I'm sure you found the right person for you, but we can only learn if we can learn. So can you tell us what we could have done better?" And I think most of the time, folks are so surprised to get that we've gotten some really good feedback that way, like you have. On the other side of that, whenever we're interviewing, like we can only hire so many people, even though there are great people out there. Anytime we have to say no, but thank you, especially if someone got late in an interview process, etc., I always offer directly, if you would like to follow up and debrief the interview process or anything, let me know. And that's both so I can learn, but also so that I can provide to the candidate, here's what worked and what didn't work. And we offer this as a matter of practice now. And I can count on two hands over 15 years of hiring people, how many people have actually followed up. And I feel like that's such a missed opportunity. If you were close but didn't get it, why would you not take the debrief with the CEO of a company and learn from that? So I love that you just bake that in to what you do. Tariq, what would you give as advice to aspiring entrepreneurs in all their forms?
I'm gonna piggyback off a few things what everybody said. Just patience. I would probably say staying mentally balanced, not getting too high, not getting too low. Just trying to stay even keel and just stay focused on the next objective at hand, and just be willing to take a risk on yourself. If you did the work, the preparation, the research, and you feel like this is the right thing for you, do it. And self-reflection is a big thing in being an entrepreneur. You gotta self-reflect in what you've done and what you think you can do better. And like you said, reaching back out to other people, like, hey, what could I have done better? And that's really a missed opportunity. And sometimes you need it to hear it, to evolve, to go better. And that's pretty much what I have to say. Just stay mentally balanced and go from there.
I love that. I wish this was like 3 hours long. This is incredible. There's so much in what you just said, right? Like there are going to be peaks and valleys in everything that happens in life, but specifically when you're trying to start something. And I found like don't wallow in the lows and take the time to really appreciate the highs and then figure out what you're learning from all of that. I think when I got confident as a CEO was when I stopped worrying about what I didn't know and remembering that we've always found a solution. So as long as we can find a solution, then we're ready for what's coming next. And that was a mental shift that I think you've articulated so incredibly well there. Mr. Holtz, I'm going to come to you. What advice would you have for folks who are finding their entrepreneurial journey, whether it's on their own or whether it's advancing rapidly in an existing workplace? What advice do you have for entrepreneurs?
Yeah, I mean, I would say I think everyone sort of touched on this idea around making sure that you create the space, is what I always say, is to build, learn, and grow, and be consistent through that. But I think the other thing that's out there is just knowing that the opportunity is out there, right? Like the opportunity always isn't waiting for you to find it, right? It's not always going to be sitting right there for you to just grab it. Sometimes you have to create it yourself, right? Sometimes you have to build it yourself, and stay true to that. And so I think what I would say in a nutshell is one, stay curious, stay true to your word and consistent on it. Invest in yourself into your passion, and don't be afraid to build something that doesn't yet exist, or build something that can be built together when you have a collective of people supporting you around it. And so know that opportunities are massive, and then when you get the chance to create something, don't be afraid to lean into that.
I love that. I love that. I think that is a perfect spot to leave this discussion. And we don't usually do this with the Changemaker series, right? We usually do the recording and then we put them up and we hope that there's something there that resonates. But I think this should be the start of an ongoing dialogue where every year or so we come back together and we give some updates on our businesses and what we're learning. I think there could be some real journey in that. So if all of you are open to it, maybe this becomes the tradition that we keep coming back to as we move forward. I want to do one other thing, and I'm not confident that people are in a space where they can come on camera, so absolutely zero pressure on this. But these types of things don't happen in a vacuum. You've got me on camera facilitating this. You've got a rock star panel, but there are folks who put these on. That is entrepreneurship in its own right. So I want to give a huge shout out to Paula and to Poppy and to Zamia. Zamia has been the driving force behind this Changemaker series for a long time now, from getting the right panelists to helping to draft everything that make us sound like we know exactly what we're doing. Poppy, all the way from Manchester, England, is doing everything in the middle of a heat wave in Manchester, England, to make this work. And Miss Paula Wallace just brings phenomenal energy every day to our translation and cultural competency practice. And they are, in their own right, examples of entrepreneurship that, as I'm thinking about this, we should do a discussion around that. Like, what does a Changemaker series look like and how do we produce it and the energy that you bring to it? So thank you all so much. And thank you to each of you who are watching. Please follow up with us. If you have any follow-up questions for the panelists, you can send them to connect@linksp.com, connect@linksp.com, and we'll make sure we get you looped in. Until then, have a fantastic day. Thank you.